Chess YouTube, this right here is the attack of the year, played between Magnus Carlsen and Hikaru Nakamura in the 2020 Carlsen Tour Finals in Kiev. And Magnus in this game, on move 18, playing the move rook to g3, sliding over with the rook, targeting g7, and launching an absolutely brutal kingside attack. This game was insane. Let's dive right in. In the game, Magnus here, opening 1d4, black, knight to f6, then c4, e6, knight f3, d5, and knight to c3. Magnus here going for the 3 knights variation of the QGD, named after these 3 knights on c3, f3, and f6, the most standard of standard openings at the highest level. Now, black here has like 8 or 9 different options. The most common ones include bishop e7, bishop b4, c6, and c5. But instead, in this game, Hikaru Nakamura playing the Vienna variation with the move d takes c4, capturing the free pawn on c4, and offering white the question, how do you want to regain this pawn? What's your idea? Well, Magnus here plays the strongest move, e4, threatening e5. And now Hikaru plays a very shocking idea. That is the move b5. This move right here is really, really bizarre. Defending c4 with the pawn, but obviously weakening this diagonal right here. Now, the main move used to be bishop b4. That is the main Vienna line. But instead, b5 has emerged as a very common line for black in this opening. Now, white continues, e5, pushing back this knight, knight d5, and then knight takes b5. This is the drawback of this opening. So black here, he defends c4, but gives up this pawn on b5 in the process. White wins the pawn, and black plays the move knight b6. That is the entire idea behind this bizarre opening. Black, again, maintaining defense of the pawn on c4. However, in doing so, his pawn structure on the queen side is sort of ruined. He has these doubled isolated pawns on the c-file, the weak pawn on a7, and so on, and white should be able to target these pawns later in the game. Now, on the plus side, black has a very strong pawn on c4, which does restrict the white pieces. The bishop can go to, say, b7, and black will get a lot of activity in the opening. Now here, white has a wide variety of plans and ideas. You can go for an alpha 0 attack with h4, h5, h6. You can develop with, say, bishop b2, bishop b3, and so on. Or you can also play the move Magnus Carlsen played in this game, and that is the move a4. Now, this is the second most common move here, but personally, I've never seen this move played in this position. Now, obviously, white's idea is he is threatening a5. He also defends this knight on b5 with the a pawn like this. Now, a5 is a serious threat. White would gain space in the queen side, push back the knight, and so on. And therefore, black has to find some way to respond to the threat. What's it going to be in this game? In the game, Hikaru, he sees the threat, and he plays the very strong response, queen to d7. The idea behind this is very, very simple. If white does go a5, he would simply hang the knight on the b5 square, and black could swoop in, take that knight, and get a very significant lead in this game. Therefore, Magnus has got to find some other way to continue besides a5. That would be a slightly dubious idea. Yes, you do win this knight on b6, but overall, black would be okay out of the opening. Instead, Magnus here continues, bishop e2, a very typical idea for white in this opening. White here trying to castle fast on the king side, and then from there, just continue development. Now, black here, knight c6 is the move. White castles, and then black goes knight to a5, a very interesting choice. Black here getting both of these knights, defending the pawn on the c4, and beyond that, this knight on a5 also eyes the b3 square, and now knight b3 is a serious threat, as then black would be forking the rook on the a1 square and the very important dark squared bishop on c1. If white were to lose that bishop, that would be absolutely devastating for him in this game. Now, Magnus here, he's castled. How does he want to continue the attack in this game? He's got to find some way to put pressure on black, as if black has a bunch of free moves, he will go, for example, bishop b7, bishop e7, castles kingside or queenside, and overall black will be doing just fine if he can unwind like that. So Magnus here, obviously, he's got to find some way to put some pressure on black fast if he wants to get an edge out of the opening. Now here, the computer finds the bizarre idea of d5 right here, giving up the d-pawn to the knight or the queen. For example, knight takes d5. Now, if you understand why this move is the strongest here, please let me know down in the comments below, because for the life of me, I just cannot understand this move right here at all. If you think you know, comment down below. But anyways, instead, in the game, Magnus here, he plays the move knight g5. Now, I really, really like this move. And the idea is the knight on g5, it eyes the e4 square, and from there it eyes c5, and c5 would be simply fantastic, hitting the queen, and if the bishop ever goes to b7, the bishop on b7 as well. Now, black here plays the move h6, pushing back the knight. Knight e4 is the move, and now we have bishop b7, by far the best square for that bishop. Now here, Magnus, he jumps into c5 immediately. Knight c5 is the move, hits the bishop and the queen. And now the only good idea for black is taking this knight on c5 with the other bishop. If you go back to, say, I don't know, c8 or with the queen and the bishop, that is simply way, way too passive. Therefore, Hikaru here, he is forced to part ways with his precious dark squared bishop, and he plays the move bishop takes c5 immediately. Now we have d takes, and then knight d5. Black jumps in, gets the knight out of the way of the attack by the c-pawn, and centralizes. Of course, black here had the option of trading queens on d1, but fortunately for us, Hikaru is in a fighting mood in this game, and he keeps the knights on the board. Knight d5 is the move right here. Now here on move 15, Magnus Carlsen finds a brilliant way to continue the attack, and he plays the move here, rook to a3, sliding up with the rook lift on the third rank. One of the key ideas behind the move, what was it, 9a3 played in the opening? The rook now eyes, for example, g3, which would target g7 and defend the g2 pawn if black were to pilot pressure on that pawn in the future. A very strong multi-purpose move by the GOAT Magnus Carlsen, and very, very creative. All right, black here, a6 is the move, pushing back this knight. We have knight d4, and then knight to e7. What is the idea behind this? Hikaru retreating his knight back to the e7 square, and the idea is simple. He's freeing up d5 for the queen, and from there it may target c5, trying to gobble up that free pawn on the c5 square. Now here, Magnus, queen d2 is the move. The idea being white attacks the very vulnerable knight on the a5 square, but of course if you take that, the knight on d4 also hangs to the black queen on d7. Here, black, queen d5 is the move, pressuring c5. And Magnus here, he ignores the knight, at least for right now, and plays the much stronger idea of rook to g3, sliding over with the rook, immediately attacking g7. And here's the problem. If black were to castle kingside, that would be a massive, colossal blunder. White takes the pawn on h6 and basically wins the game on the spot. Instead here, black plays the move queen takes c5, winning this free pawn on the c5 square, which is a good move. And now here, Magnus Carlsen, how does he continue? It turns out taking on g7 is not the right way, as then black castles queenside, and black has pressure on d4 and so on. Black wins the piece, and effectively the game on the spot. Instead, Magnus here, he plays the move b4, gaining space on the queen side and attacking the queen, but of course black has the option of taking on b3 en passant, winning the free pawn and getting a massive lead in this game. Here, black takes on b3. C takes b3 is the move. And here, white has the very simple option of taking back on b3 with the knight. Then if black takes, white takes back. White has pressure on b7 and so on. And white would have a pretty good game. But Magnus here, he does not do that. Oh no, he plays a slightly dubious but very creative idea of bishop to a3, the deflection sacrifice. The idea being here, if black takes the bishop, white takes the knight on the a5 square, pressures c7, and he might have some sort of attack going here against the black king. But it turns out, for whatever reason, this is not the best idea, and black here punishes it immediately. Black takes on a3, queen takes a3 is the move, and Magnus here, he responds to the only move, queen takes a5, winning the free knight in return. But now, black, bishop d5. This is very strong, defending b3. Now, obviously, white here cannot take on b3. That pawn's defended twice and attacked only twice. Therefore, it is sufficiently defended. And now, the pawn on b3 is a massive asset in this game. Black threatening b2, then b1 later in the game, promoting that strong pawn into a new queen. And what can Magnus do about it? Well, it turns out, taking on b3 with the rook is the strongest idea here. If you think you know why, comment down below why that is an absolutely brilliant move by Magnus Carlsen. Instead, rook takes g7 played in this game, and this turns out to be a little bit of a mistake. But first, real fast, if you are tired of watching endless chess YouTube videos and you want to find a better way to improve at online chess, I do have a free online chess community /course/group coaching program. It's all free. Links down below. I'll see you there. It is one of the fastest ways to improve at online chess. Now here, the reason why this move is so weak is black plays the move c5. He ignores the king, keeps it on e8, and instead counterattacks on d4. And the point is, these pawns are now cooking. They are rolling down the board, and it's going to be almost impossible for white to stop that pawn. Now we have bishop h5. White ignores the knight on d4, instead counterattacks on f7 with the bishop. Black takes on d4. White takes on f7 like this. We have king d7 and then bishop g4 targeting the weak pawn on the e6 square. Now king to c6, bishop takes e6, and bishop takes. Now rook f6 targets the weak bishop on e6. The black king on c6 is so vulnerable. However, on the other hand, black here has two very strong pawns on b3 and d4. It's going to be an all-out race between Magnus Carlsen and his brutal attack against the black king versus black and his defense and his strong pawns on d4 and b3, which do threaten to ride down the board and promote into a new queen, for example. Black here, king d7 is the move, sliding back, defending the bishop, but here, Magnus Carlsen, he's ready. Queen to b6 targets the weak bishop and piles on more and more pressure, and look at this. It's actually not so easy to defend the bishop. There is no real way. You have to move it back to, say, I don't know, d5, or f7 or g8 and so on. But no matter where you move it, white's going to have a brutal attack. For example, if, say, bishop to g8, queen to b7 hits the rook and the king with a brutal attack. So instead, bishop d5 played in the game by Hikaru, and now we have rook d6 hits the king, hits the bishop. Magnus will win back a little bit of material one way or another. King to e8 is the move. Now rook takes d5. The idea being, if knight takes, then queen to c6 hits the knight, the rook, and the king, and white would win back some material. Now, instead of that, the computer here recommends the move queen takes a4, winning this free pawn, but ignoring everything else, ignoring the free knight. Kind of insane. Instead, knight takes d5, played in the game by Hikaru right here. Knight takes d5, we have queen c6, hits the king, king d7, queen b7 hits the king again, king to e6, queen c6, king e7, and from here, Magnus, his goal is just to get a draw. He's not playing for a win anymore. He's down a knight. He's down, the two strong pawns here on b3 and d4. He knows a win is almost out of the question, and he offers the draw. Queen b7, king e6, queen c6, and here, Hikaru Nakamura, all he has to do to get a draw versus the GOAT is simply slide back to the e7 square, and it would be a threefold draw by repetition. Now, instead of that, Hikaru Nakamura, he plays the move king to f5. He is fighting on in this game. Hikaru ignoring the chance to get a draw versus the GOAT in this attack of the year in the 2020 Carlsen Tour Finals, instead playing on for a win with his king stuck on the f5 square. Absolutely insane. All right, white here, he wins the free knight. Queen takes d5, but of course black here is still up an entire rook in this game. Now you have queen to e7, black here flying back, trying to defend. And now here, Magnus, he still has the chance to eke out a draw in this game if he finds the right response. And the right response right here is simply rook to c1, trying to activate his last remaining piece. Now, instead, in the game, he plays the move e6 check with the discovered check on the king by the queen, but this turns out to be a massive mistake, and this is where Hikaru just starts to run away in this game with the lead. We have king g6, queen to e4, hits the king, king g7, queen takes d4, wins the free pawn on the d4 square, king to g8, queen g4 hits the king. But now Hikaru, queen g7, he simply slides over and blocks the attack on the king. We have queen to c4, attacks the free pawn on the b3 square. b2 pushes the pawn down the board, threatening to promote. f4 gains space on the king side. Rook b8 defends the pawn. And now here, look at this. Hikaru Nakamura threatening b1, promoting to a new queen in one move. Magnus Carlsen, what can he do to defend? He does the only thing he can. Queen to e4, slides over, guarding b1 with the queen and the rook. Therefore, b1 now would not win the game on the spot. However, Hikaru Nakamura rook to h7. He finds a way to activate his last remaining piece, that being the rook. It now enters the game. We have rook b1, blockading the pawn on the b2 square, but now queen to b7, offering the queen trade again, and further supporting this pawn on b7, and beyond that, freeing up the 7th rank for the rook. The rook now can slide over to, say, c7, threaten rook c1, and that would be devastating. Magnus here, queen to e2 is the move. He slides back, keeps the queens on the board, but now Hikaru, the final move of the game, he slides the rook over on the 7th rank, rook to c7. The rook now threatens rook to c1, hitting the king on the g1 square, forcing the trade of rooks, and therefore, for that reason, in this position, Magnus Carlsen, he resigns on the spot to Hikaru, and here's why. For example, if white were to waste a move, say a5, rook c1 comes, hits the king, hits the rook, and if white takes b takes c1, promotes to a new queen, and obviously, with the extra queen and extra rook, black here would be completely winning, and for that reason, right here, Magnus Carlsen, he resigns to Hikaru Nakamura in the attack of the year in the 2020 Carlsen Tour Finals in Kiev. Wow, what a game played between Magnus Carlsen and Hikaru Nakamura. I mean, simply insane stuff right here. All right, guys, hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please show me some love. Smash that like button, comment down below. Whatever you want to say is all good. And real fast, if you want to improve online chess the fast and easy way, I have built a free online chess community for you guys. Go to drmikechess.com. Links above and down below in the pinned comment and the description. My students there are making insane progress. It's all free. And by the way, right now, we are launching new features, including 4 times weekly group coaching calls with me. I will literally jump on a call with you and help you improve your games in real time. Beyond that, we also have new tournaments. We have 2 tournaments weekly, plus a daily tournament, which will start very, very soon. If you want access to these tournaments versus all the other members in this group, join right now. And finally, I am busting out new courses literally daily. I have new course modules coming out daily. If you want to get better at chess, check out my free courses. It's all there, drmikechess.com. I'll see you there. And as always, I wish you the best of luck in your chess improvement journey in 2025 and beyond. And I'll see you in the next video.